I have known Mark and his family for almost 30 years, I think, right now, 25 years. I've been working with Mark for quite a while in his company. The best thing about Mark is that he creates opportunities for us because our clients are constantly looking for different ways to mitigate taxes and or save dollars. So I started working with Mark many years ago because a lot of stuff that he's doing helps us on the insurance side. Obviously, we're selling insurance, whether it's on the property casualty, benefits, or life side. Mark creates a lot of the liquidity and opportunity for us in what we're doing. So with that, I'll introduce you to Mark. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see you guys. So I'm the president of Titan Capital Recovery Group, and just to touch on a few things before I go into the one particular product I'm going to talk about is we do cost segregation studies for clients. So anybody who has a building that they want to accelerate the depreciation, we can help you with that. We do research and development studies for clients as well. Probably starting in January would be a good time as well with the cost segregation to look into those if those qualify for you. We also do capital asset acquisition. So anybody who's selling a highly appreciated asset with a low basis and they want to defer their taxes for 30 years, we can help you with that as well. But this particular opportunity we have right now, it's an investment that has charitable potential. And really what that means is when you focus on the investment with charitable potential is that it will give you a multiple on your investment to be able to offset your taxes that you have. And it's for 2022. So the product we're going to talk about is called Novaderm. Novaderm is a breakthrough technology that is a dressing that helps burn victims rejuvenate their skin. And I do want to touch on burn victims and how many people are affected by it in the United States. Over 450,000 people in the United States have burn injuries. 25,000 of them have severe burn injuries where they go into the burn centers. There's only 128 burn centers in the country that are 501c3s, which is very important with this presentation. Many hospitals who do the burn procedures are very limited. They'll take 1 or 2 patients and that's it. So the 25,000 or so patients who have to go to burn centers, they go to 501c3s. And when the 501c3s, they need to raise capital, of course, for this. And this program itself it's an emotional thing for me. You know, my father is having surgery right now and you know, he could use this patch for one of the things that he has going on, and it's just not acceptable in the private arenas as it would be in a 501c3 environment. As I mentioned, you know, 200 procedures go into each one of these 127 facilities, which is about, you know, 25,000 cases. The thing that's a little bit scary, unfortunately, is about 1,200 children each year are affected by this. And the majority of people who are in the hospital are the children who are 5 and younger. So let me just talk about why we're raising capital for this opportunity for you all is that, the button's a little bit delayed, but the transaction is to get this product, the Novaderm product, into the 501c3 hospitals. That is the objective of this program, is to get them in there. The second thing is we have negotiated with the supplier to buy their inventory. And I'll go through the mechanics of why buying inventory and donating it is completely different than the seller to be able to sell it into this. They're limited because of certain restrictions. And the company is doing this for multiple reasons. They're trying to get the final FDA approval. They need some additional capital expenditures. They want to do research and development studies. And one important thing is they don't want to dilute their shareholders who have been with them for quite some time. This investment opportunity for anybody, yourselves or your clients who are looking at this, it's truly a way to be philanthropic in a meaningful way. Okay, to be able to get these patches to these 501c3 hospitals. The sponsor we work with has an exclusive arrangement with the seller for the next 5 years, which is huge to be able to have a 5-year commitment on this type of opportunity. So let's just talk about the product for a second. As I mentioned before, I'm not going to read word for word up there. It's a dressing that allows The patient's skin, so anybody who is affected by a burn or scars, that they'll take their own skin graft and they'll put it on this patch, which sells for $300 per square centimeter. They'll put that skin on there, and it will rejuvenate that skin over a 30-day period to up to 100 to 200, maybe even 300 times the amount of skin. And that's very important when you're looking at people who have to go through these procedures. And as I've been doing these talks and presentations, it's amazing how many people have told me that their family or if somebody has been affected by a burn, that they haven't had the proper care or many surgeries and what have you. This also, what's incredible about this product is that by taking the skin from the patient and rejuvenating the skin and growing, is that the patient's immune system will accept this. It's not going to come from, a deceased person or somebody else's skin. It's their skin and will not be rejected. And the technology has been tested over 150 times in clinical studies to show its success. One particular doctor who is with Shriners Hospital has done 100 of these, and they are ecstatic about the fact that this opportunity is coming to them to be able to get this product that they don't have to pay for, okay? And again, the Novoderm product is there to truly save people's lives, get them out of the hospital quicker. You don't need to have multiple surgeries done. The competitor's product is clearly a product that is not permanent. It's a product that has to be changed out every 3 to 5 days. So what that means is that the patient is going to be in the hospital that much longer and have to be under care. So the Novoderm product definitely offers a tremendous advantage. We're going to go through the structure of the transaction and how we're able to achieve this. The big thing is, as when you were listening to Ken speaking and what Bobby mentioned before, is that this really helps open up liquidity for the investors who take the opportunity to donate this product if they choose to. So I mentioned before that one of the holding companies of the product is Closed Herd Pharma. They have the product in their inventory that we are going to be acquiring. And again, for the reason is for capital expenditures. Sorry, this thing is a little bit delayed. Can you click through it? Okay, to get higher FDA approval, I am, going over some things I said earlier. To expand into new markets is what they want to do, and they don't want to dilute the shareholders. And that's something that, when people have invested in companies before and they're at the front end of it, they don't want to be diluted after all this additional capital comes in. And it's a great way to be able to do that. And again, expand into new markets. They are a development company, biotech company, that they want to be able to create more products on it. Perfect. Again, I mentioned the minimum shareholder dilution. So through this here, the way we're able to do this is to help them get this product to those burn centers, and really, truthfully speaking, it's just really, besides the economic side of it, there's an emotional side of this as well for these patients who have been going through this. So getting this dressing over to those hospitals is a very, very big thing for us on our side. And we'll be offering in this transaction $2 million LLC investments. And I do want to touch on that a little bit, the difference of a $2 million investment compared to doing maybe an $8, $10, or $12 million investment. And our people who study the tax codes, like Ken has mentioned before, they go deep. The sponsor of this here is both him and his partner are attorneys, LLMs. They have been doing this for many, many years, and they really study the tax code and how the IRS is looking at these opportunities. So a $2 million investment, the benefit of this here compared to potentially an $8, $10, or $12 million is the charitable deduction portion of it will not exceed $10 million. In the 8, 10, or 12, when we're raising capital, you're at a 40, 50, $60 million charitable deduction. That is on the radar of the IRS for multiple reasons. One of the biggest reasons is you usually have 80 to 90 people inside of those partnerships, right? The IRS has the same amount of money to spend if they were to do a $10 million charitable deduction review or a $40, $60 million review. The difference there is in our $2 million raises, we're only probably bringing in 12 people, 15 people at max. The most will, if a $50,000 investment, of course, it would be more, but we blend everybody. So when I say that is because the IRS, if they're going to spend the same amount of money, they're not going to go after the 12 people and the $10 million and below to get any sort of reimbursement back from them. They'll go after the other side on the 40, 50, 60 million where they can affect 80 or 90 people in it. Any questions before I move on? Okay, so the opportunity for people who want to invest in this. There's really two opportunities, and then of course the philanthropic side. The sales scenario. You can get into this LLC and say, I own with everybody else $2 million worth of product that we bought that has a value of 5 times, and the 5 times value comes from what I mentioned before. It's a $300 per square centimeter for the sales price. We're getting it for $60 per square centimeter. And the reason that we're able to get that price and be able to substantiate that price is the hospitals have already said they would pay $300 per square centimeter. Their competing product, which is not a permanent product, is selling for $296 per square centimeter. So they see the benefit in that alone, okay? However, because of the humanitarian exemptions and the orphan drug designation that is involved in this, they are limited on how much they can actually sell at this current time. And as I said before, they're trying to raise capital to get that final FDA approval, which would change the dynamics of sales side of it. But right now, through the sales side, I've had many people say, well, why don't they just sell enough of this product to be able to raise that capital that they need? There's not enough that they can sell to get to the point of raising capital. However, in a charitable donation, we are unlimited. We can donate as much product as we want to these charities. The charities of choice right now is American Burn Association, who has the 128 501c3s part of their organization. They will accept 100% of the product, and they will distribute it to the hospitals who want to do these procedures. Now, on the charitable side, what you're able to get is that 5 times multiple of the fair market value of that asset. So we paid 60, we're getting 300. That's where a $100,000 investment would get you a $500,000 charitable deduction. Okay, and a $500,000 charitable deduction, just for easy math, if it's worth 40% of a tax rate, that's a $200,000 tax savings for you. It did cost you $100,000. Okay, and I'll touch on that further on into the presentation. But that is important to understand because we have a lot of people asking us, why don't they just sell? They can't. We can donate as much. So we have the opportunity right now to raise up to $70 million for them. And again, in the biotech space, $70 million doesn't really go that far when you're developing a lot of things and you have staff, and you're creating new products. In R&D alone, it's crazy. And then the next one's going to be the philanthropic side. You guys don't like me today. No other company besides the sponsor that we are working with right now has access to this. So nobody else can go to Novoderm, Regeneron, Close Herd Pharma and get this product. So this is exclusive to the sponsor and it's exclusive to our company as the only people who are raising capital for this. And again, it gives you that philanthropic feeling to be able to help all these burn victims that have been suffering for years. Speaking to clients where, I would, or potential clients, saying to me, I wish this technology was available before because my brother had major burns and for 14 years, he went through multiple surgeries and replacements and everything else. And unfortunately, he passed. Another person telling me a similar story. And again, as I mentioned it, it's an emotional side to this product because you're really helping the people who need the help the most, the underprivileged, and as you saw before, the children that are involved in this. Any questions before I go into the investment details? That means I'm doing a good job. Okay, so this is only open to accredited investors. You have to make $200,000 plus a year or have $1 million in assets. The membership would have a subscription agreement and a PPM. I have shared some of the PPMs with some people in this room. The subscription documents, get you into the program. Again, it's going to be $2 million tranches for each group. $50,000 minimum, which before we didn't have $50,000 minimum, so we are opening this up to more people who can get this benefit. Before it was $100,000 in the other transactions that we had. And again, we're going to do a blend with the 50,000 investors to put them in with $500,000 investors and everything else. Our objective is to keep the partnership interest of the syndicate, if you want to call it, to as minimal as possible so that we're not getting more than 20 people, but right now we're averaging anywhere from 10 to 12 people on it. And then there'll be a limited liability corporation that will be set up. And with that, each investor by probably December 15th to December 28th will receive an email based on what do they want to do with this investment. Do they want to sell it? We know we're limited, unfortunately, at this time, but you can hold it for a future or hold it for future sales when the FDA approval potentially comes through. Or do you want to donate it and get that charitable deduction? Okay. The LLCs will be formed in Nevada and Delaware. Again, $2 million raises for each one of them. The seller of the product, which is Closed Herd Pharma, has had this property in their possession for over a year and sometime, if not multiple years. And what that allows us to do is to be able to buy up to 99% of that company where they maintain a 1% ownership, which allows anybody who invests today to be able to get that deduction for 2022, okay? And that's what is impressive about this. And I get a lot of people, and I'll just mention this here because they were all finishing their taxes and you just went through this, and they'll call me up and say, hey, I have a $200,000 liability from last year. Can I do something here? It's like, no, that window closed last year. So if you have people who are looking at this, this is for now and for the future. The reason for it now, of course, is you can get that benefit. Most people will know what their estimated AGI may be. Some people, of course, have bigger sales happening in the fourth quarter, so those numbers can adjust. But mostly everybody knows. And if they overbuy, what they can use, because you can only use up to 50% of your adjusted gross income as a write-off. So if you're making $1 million and you gave $100,000 at a 5 times multiple, you got $500,000 to offset that $1 million of income. If you want to do $400,000 to offset that $1 million, you can do that. The law states up to 50%. Okay, so people take advantage of the 50%. However, if they wanted to buy $200,000 and they wanted to put that into a carryover for the next 5 years, they can do that as well. And again, just being transparent with it, the contract we have is for 5 years. Hold on to the $100,000 rather than giving me $200,000 and invest that $100,000 into something else, and then we'll come back to you again next year. There's no reason to buy something that you can make money on. You're not going to make any money on the other thing besides the tax savings. As I mentioned earlier, prior to December 31st, there will be a vote to what you would do with the product. If you choose to be philanthropic and donate that product, it has to be by majority. Okay, so if Pat owns $900,000 of the LLC, and Jake owns 99,000 of it, and I own 1,000,001 of it, my vote is what's going to make the difference, right? Because a pro rata amount is going to be greater than 50%. So we need to have 51% of the members if they choose to vote. And I say that because it's an option. I'm not sitting here saying go ahead and vote for the charitable side, but they have to choose to vote. It has to be at a 51% or greater amount to get the deduction. With that said, I have done 20 some odd, if not 30 different transactions over the last 6 years plus doing this here, and everybody has gone to the donation side. And we've had people vote to develop, and I think they're doing that to be a little bit cute, as, hey, the IRS comes in and, oh, I voted to developing, knowing that the 51% was going to do the charitable side. Doesn't make a difference when it comes to that. The 51% represents everybody with that. We will also get a third-party appraiser that will come out outside of the letters we get from the doctors or the surgeons from the hospitals that will tell us that they will be paying $300 per square centimeter for this. So we're excited about that. I put this in here because I just want people to really understand, if you do go this route and you make an investment that you choose to donate it, how are you gonna be philanthropic and who you're really helping here, right? It's the less fortunate. Pediatric with Shriners Hospital is huge. As I mentioned before, 20% of the patients that are in the hospital are children 5 and under who get burned by water, touching fireplaces, whatever it may be. You're going to also substantially reduce the patient's stay in the hospital. So it's not just for the patient, but also the family members who are not going back every day and losing work hours and not to be able to take care of their own business, and it puts them into a financial hardship potentially. You'll be able to allow the hospitals to do more procedures, right? So when the product is donated to the hospitals, they're not raising capital to be able to acquire more, right? So they can perform more surgeries and help the people in need. And then with your donation, if you choose to go that route, it will help you minimize your tax return significantly and free up liquidity. And a lot of these things that, before I go into the next thing to show you, of what Ken was talking about, that there's things that he's doing to help you offset taxes. You may be picking up on the 83B election some income there. Well, you combine that income into your AGI and everything else, and you do one of these programs, we just wipe that out by at least 50%. When you sell the asset and you have to pay your taxes in 5 or 10 years, you can use this program to minimize those taxes that you're coming out of Ken's program. So when you sit there and combine everything on these programs, the liquidity alone that you are opening up can offset all these other things that Ken and Bobby and everybody else puts into place for your clients. It's about following the tax code, taking advantage of the tax code, and be able to sit there and say, this was a huge benefit. Philanthropic-wise, personally, economic-wise for myself, and your return on your investment is significant. You're gonna look at minimum 85% if you don't have a state tax benefit of it. But let's take a look at this chart here. This is a New York State taxpayer. And what I did here was, and hopefully this is big enough for you guys to see. This is a client that is making $1.5 million a year, okay? And I always, when I work my numbers, I always work on the effective tax rate. I don't work on the marginal tax rate. I'll talk about, let's take a 40% and use it as an average. But in this case here, we're pretty close to that 40%, just on $1.5 million with a client, right? So at almost 40%, if they wanted to take advantage of 50% of the deduction, they would invest $150,000. They would get $750,000 of credit. Federal-wise, they'll save $262,000. And state, they'll save $33,000. That's almost a $300,000 savings when you look at the savings. What I do on the end number there is, I'm saying, hey, you get the $300,000, it cost you $150,000 to get in, your net benefit is $150,000. That free cash can do so many things for you. It can fund your premiums. It can pay for your kids' education that Ken was talking about before, right? 1 year potentially, depends on what school your kids are going to. This can offset that tax burden that your kid may have. okay? It can do a lot of things for you. And again, the purpose of what we do here is to free up that liquidity. And I do have clients who invested with us last year as well, and the benefits they have received on this have been huge. It helps with capital expenditures for themselves, right? The bottom line is this here. As long as you're following the code and you're doing everything right, once you write that check to the federal government, what is your return on your investment? Absolutely zero. Okay, zero. You're never going to see that money again unless you overpaid. And they're a little bit slow about sending in that back these days, right? So why not follow the tax codes that are there that allow you to take advantage of these programs and put more money in your pocket rather than their pockets? The IRS alone, just on people not taking proper deductions, gets over $1 billion a year. And they'll be the ones who will have in their statements, people are not taking advantage of the deductions they're allowed to. And when people talk about audits, if anything was to happen at this here, it would happen at the partnership side, not the individual side, okay? Because the CPA did not create the K-1 for this individual and the partnership. It has to go to the partnership side. With that said, any questions? Yeah. If you're not asking questions, then I'm doing a really good job.
I'll ask. So, I saw the materials in the folder with the cost segregation and R&D, which, we probably all heard about, seen, and, and that sort of thing. And this, at least for me, is, it's relatively new. You introduced me to this maybe, a few weeks or a month ago. And, it seems like it's a little more on the edge than, some of the other things. Just R&D credit's been around, since 1986 and, and that sort of thing. So, I guess, so you said that you've been doing this for 2 years?
No, I've been doing it for over 6 years.
Over 6 years with these type of
programs.
And then you've done 20 partnerships or so, you said?
Oh, at least, if not more. Especially last year with the medical kits, the programs we had in there, we probably had almost 5 partnerships alone there. Besides that was all land conservation deals, which many partnerships of doing them.
Okay. And then have any of those been audited?
Every one of the land conservations have been audited. Okay, but let me answer the question you said before about this. Seems almost too good to be true.
Yes, exactly.
It's new to me. Land conservations have been around since 1980s. It's been around for a long time. And what I mentioned before is the tax attorney, Jeff and Beckett, who are the 2 tax attorneys on this, they dive into the code like you would dive into the code. They really look into what the IRS is looking for. In 6 years that they've been doing their medical kits, they have never once had an audit. Never once. Every partnership in the land conservation space goes under audit. And it's accelerating. And the reason why, and we did a lot of business, a lot of transactions in the last 5 years, 6 years with the conservations, I decided I don't want to do them anymore. The reason being is that in legislation right now, there's a 25-3 vote to minimize the multiple to 2.5 times. A 2.5 times multiple is no benefit for the taxpayer who is looking to save money on taxes. There's a benefit if they want to be philanthropic and donate land and conserve it and everything else, and we're all for that. But most of our people who get involved in this are looking for both, right? It's, otherwise they can give their money to St. Jude, and which they should, and give money to other charitable organizations. But this here really gets them to be able to do both. And again, the medical kits last year, one thing that we were, as a company, we were ecstatic about, and I'm sure you guys were as well who were in it, is when Ukraine was getting bombed in February, the medical kits that we did all went over to the Ukraine to help them there. This is the same thing in my mind, right? Preserving land is important for it, and I'm all for that. This here is helping people immediately, right? And this is what is important in my mind, and that's why it's an emotional sell, if you want to call it that, for me as well. Yes, Ken?
Would you think the difference between the conservation easements getting audited and this not is the fact that this is not a listed transaction?
It's not a listed transaction. Great question. Thank you for bringing that up. It's not a listed transaction. It's not on the Dirty Dozen list. It's a personal property compared to real property. So in that position there is real property is that Bobby can own 125 Maple and I can own 123 Maple. And both be an acre of land and everything else, the IRS will look at them as different values, okay? Bobby may have natural gas on his property. I may not. So the IRS is going to challenge the real property. In personal property, I can have a Ford 150, Bobby can have a Ram 1500, and Julian can have a Chevy Silverado. They're similar. So when it looks like that, it's a big difference. The other thing too is when you're looking at the land conservation easement, which is a easement placed on the land, it's not a fee simple transaction. The owners of the property still own that land and they can sell it later. It's another reason why the IRS is looking at this. When you're talking about personal property, we are taking product, donating it to the American Burn Association, who is taking that in their possession, and that transaction is done and complete. Big difference when you look at personal property and you look at real property and you look at the listed transaction side, the audit side. We also have $1 million plus of audit defense. And you'll appreciate this here, and anybody else if you got audited for a client on this here, just to say, hey, we want to review the Novoderm PPM and the transaction and everything else, our team will go in and assist you for that particular line item with the IRS. They had that. The partnerships never audited. 2 clients, they got audited, and rather than trying to fight it and don't have to give it to them because it's a partnership, sent our people in after 6 weeks. Both taxpayers had no change at all in that particular line item. Any other questions? Well, thank you everybody for your time, and hopefully that you guys will all participate in this either personally with your clients. Again, it's for a great cause, so thank you.